Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Okay, today's guest is someone who is innovative, progressive, and doing something and having conversations that are slightly awkward, but she's normalizing it. And so I thought it would be so incredible to bring her here. And now she's my new friend, Julia Rodgers. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm happy you're here. So you are the founder and CEO of HelloPrenup.
That's right.
Prenup, guys. This is it. We're doing it today. This is what we all came here for. Okay, I always start by asking guests 3 adjectives to describe yourself.
I know. This is hard.
So good. There's no wrong answer.
Yeah, okay. Compassionate, driven, and compassionate, driven, hopeful maybe.
Hopeful. I love that. Okay. There we go. Okay. So before we get to you being like literally a boss babe and literally doing that, Shark Tank winner and contestant and lawyer and etc. Where did you grow up? What was your childhood like? Where did you come from?
Yes. So I grew up in Wrentham, Massachusetts, a small town outside of Boston. Both of my parents, fantastic, like loving, kind, supportive people. My mother is actually a family law attorney, which is how I got excited and interested in family law.
And how was school for you? Were you a stellar student? Slacking student?
No, I mean, I don't know that I was like the best student, but I wasn't the worst. I was very average. I was definitely always really excited about business. My mom got me started at a really young age, like opening my own store where she would take all the cereal boxes and she would set them up and like we would have a little cash register. So I was always really excited about entrepreneurship, and it's something that has really always been in my family. So like my mom started her own law firm, and very much like you, she built it herself. And although was an attorney, also had a business.
Fantastic. So where'd you go to college?
I went to college in Boston at an all-women's college, Simmons College. And I went to Suffolk University Law School, which is also a law school in Boston. I went at night. So I was a night student and I worked at a law firm during the day.
Oh my gosh.
And actually, HelloPrenup supports Suffolk Law's Legal and Innovation Tech Lab today because they're the premier, legal innovation law school in the country.
That's amazing. Okay, so you clearly had a track. You were like, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a family law lawyer, and you just went for it. That was it.
I don't think I knew I wanted family law. So when I first started working in law, I worked at a large law firm, and we represented corporations, usually white-collar crime. And I just was so bored by the idea of representing a corporation. I really wanted more personal interaction. And that's kind of how I stumbled into family law, is then I started working with my mom, which is difficult, by the way, but we're still very close. Oh, yeah. And I really loved working directly with individuals during the hardest times in their lives, breaking down information in a way that, felt digestible for them.
And so for people who aren't familiar with the law, family law deals with divorces, custody, etc., all the stuff having to do with families breaking up or even getting married because of the prenup and postnups, etc.
Yeah.
Okay. And coming from a lawyer's point of view, how do you process through family law having to do with families and children and stuff? Because I know I hear some stories and I say I could never do it. Just being a mom, being a family person, and having gone through divorce and remarriage. How did you separate out the emotional part? Because you're a mom as well. Yeah,
I am. I think that you really do have to be able to separate yourself from what is you and what is the client. And I think a really good divorce attorney can do that. And all of the friends that I have who have remained in divorce law, they have this incredible ability to kind of, when they leave it, they leave there's none of their emotion in what is going on with their client. And I think that, and my ex-husband is a patent lawyer, right? And he was always like, I don't know how you can do this. And I was like, well, I don't know how you can do patents. So I think that you need the ability to really maintain a clear head to advise your client, to help guide them in the right direction. And it's a really fulfilling career if you are able to separate yourself in that way emotionally.
Absolutely, because it can take a toll. But like you said, the ones that do it well.
Exactly.
So, HelloPrenup. So the idea of a prenup in and of itself, I understand, and I grew up with this notion that it was only for billionaires, multimillionaires. They need prenups, not the normal working people.
Yes.
No, and we know that's very wrong. Where did this incredible and much needed idea come from?
Yeah. So let me tell you the story. So I was working at a law firm and I was talking to potential clients, prenup clients. And, they all kind of said the same thing. They were really frustrated by the fact that they had to hire a divorce lawyer, right? And they were like, we've talked about this. We feel really comfortable just having this drafted. We know what we want in the prenup. Like, why do we need to hire you?
Ooh.
Second, they didn't like the time frame, right? And so, my firm at the time required a minimum of 3 months. Most people would come in like 2 months before their wedding. They'd be like, we really need this done now. And the firm couldn't help them. And then third, and this was, in many ways the most harmful, was the price. My firm took a retainer at the time of $3,500. And people would say, you know what, on top of all of those wedding expenses, this is just not worth it for me.
And we're in love and we're never going to break up.
Exactly. I'm going to pass. I'm just not going to get a prenup at all. And I thought, like, how disappointing is that, that you are missing out on this incredible legal protection and transparency in your relationship because it's a little too expensive. How can I leverage how can I leverage technology to make this more affordable and more accessible to all couples? So I started this crazy sticky note map on my wall of basically how this platform would be built out, how the contract and the Q&A would actually work. And the system I came up with was to solve for multiple different parts. And I'll explain to you a little bit more in a minute what that means. But simultaneously, as I was doing this, I was working on a prenup where the couple, I'll call it future husband, our client was future husband, and future wife, were having a really difficult time negotiating their prenup. And the reason was because future husband's parents were billionaires. And they said to him about 6 to 8 weeks before the wedding, reminder, you better get a prenup. And if you don't, we're not paying for the wedding and we're disinheriting you. So now he's trying to get a prenup. His future wife is absolutely beyond angry about it. Oh my
gosh.
Now she's not talking to her future in-laws. And so we're trying to negotiate this agreement. And I'm thinking to myself, what could have been done differently? And I think first and foremost, had the couple had the opportunity to have a little bit more autonomy over the process, whether it be what they wanted to include in the agreement, or if future wife had felt like this agreement was also there to protect her, how would that have changed the outcome? And so it just gave so much more meaning and purpose to what I was, doing on my wall with these sticky notes. And so the way that I designed the platform was to really be a two-party system. So one party signs up, they invite their fiance, and then they individually answer a set of questions in a questionnaire. And then they walk through a negotiation phase. They do all of this before they hire an attorney to advise them. Now, why does that matter? Because the couple has autonomy over the process, and they are really able to decide for themselves what is best for them. Of course, once they hire an attorney, and they can ask an attorney questions throughout that process, right? So once they hire an attorney, of course, the attorney can advise them, that doesn't make sense, let's change this, and they can do that. But at least they have this baseline understanding as a couple before they go ahead and hire lawyers. Now, this is completely different than the traditional process, as you know. Yeah. And I think one of the reasons we've been so successful and why HelloPrenup agreements are so effective in getting couples to talk about these really tough topics is because of that two-party system.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So you identified a major, I think, juggernaut in the situation where it became an adversarial process. And people do think of it that way.
Yeah.
But you've made it more of a congenial process. Like, we are working together. This too is part of the partnership.
Yeah. And I want to add to that story. I had developed this platform and was operating in beta. And then, I'm a lawyer. I'm not a tech person. And the platform, you know, at one point had gone down. And so I got an email from this girl, Sarah Beth.
Okay.
And I think this is kind of an inspiring story for any entrepreneur who's excited about starting a business and doesn't know how to do it.
Right.
And so Sarah Beth emailed me and she said, you know, I'm a software engineer out of Seattle and I just got engaged and I was looking for a prenup and I called a bunch of lawyers and it was really intimidating and I found your platform and it's down. Do you want to talk?
My gosh.
I know. And so at the time, I always knew like I needed a technical co-founder. I just didn't know how to go about it because I'm a lawyer, right? And so we sat down over Zoom, of course, it was during the pandemic, and we connected and we were both like, yep, let's partner. This is the right move. And then only a couple of months later, I mean, she rebuilt the entire platform from scratch. We had to start all over. We then went on Shark Tank only like a couple months later. Yeah.
Like this is how fast things can happen.
So fast. Yes. And so I just think it's a fun story. And it also, I think, is indicative of you never know what's going to happen next. And so just like be really open to possibility because that's an example of possibility.
That's exactly right. And putting yourself out there. She put herself out there because she could have just said the site's down, period, because she was looking for a prenup. But no, she saw an opportunity. She went for it. You could have put her down and said no.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. The value of communicating, the value of just taking the shot.
Yeah.
Right.
And the value of partners, business partners who are really invested in the mission of the business. You know, something I think is so important for anybody who's excited about being an entrepreneur is like really be excited about your mission, not just the idea of entrepreneurship, right? And so obviously that was me, obviously that was Sarah Beth, and that has also been the case for even our chief marketing officer, right? She calls herself a prenup survivor. She had a terrible prenup and then she got divorced and, you know, it was really traumatic for her. And so she's so involved in the mission too because of that. And so I always like to tell that story because I think it's inspiring for those who aren't sure how to find their team.
It absolutely is. So just taking it back a few steps for, again, the non-legal people maybe thinking one day to get married or about to get married.
Yeah.
What is a prenup and who is it for?
Sure. So a prenup is a legal document that allows you to delineate what should be separate property and what should be marital or community. And a prenup should be for everybody. I always say everybody should get a prenup because the prenup allows you to kind of contract around state law. So even if you don't have a prenup, like a, legal document prenup, you still have a prenup by default because your state dictates what happens to your stuff in the event of a divorce. And a lot of people don't realize that. And so whether you have one or not, officially you have one. So why not just draft one that's best for you and your life and you and your partner's plans? And I say that a prenup is just as much an emotional document as it is a legal one. It allows you to get on the same page prior to marriage and decide how you want to live your lives. You know, do you want to retire at 40? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to like a house with a white picket fence? And you really have to have these conversations before getting married so that you can have that happy, long marriage.
Absolutely. What if someone says, well, I'm not wealthy. I don't have enough money. I don't have any assets. I just own a home and, my 401k and who is a prenup for?
Yeah, well, those are still assets, right? So you still want to protect that house. You still want to protect that 401k because all of that could be subject to division. I also remind people, let's not think about divorce, but let's think about how you want to manage those things, right? So let's have financial conversations about how you want to manage money as a couple. And then I think for those who are saying, well, I don't have anything at all I have is student debt. Well, student debt can also be contracted as separate in a prenup.
Okay, because you don't want to inherit your ex's debt. Or something gets divided, like you're now responsible.
Another example is inheritance. People often don't think about inheritance.
Yes.
And in some states, inheritance is by default separate. Like I think California is one of those states.
Yes.
Well, other states are not. And if you receive inheritance during the course of your marriage, that is marital or community property. And so you can contract to that being separate in a prenup. Without a prenup, you might not like the outcome.
Right. And the state is the ultimate decider. If you don't have a document, what's going to happen?
Exactly.
Kind of like not having a trust. The state is going to determine intestate
Precisely.
or probate what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. What if somebody is listening to this and they say, wow, I'm married already, but this is a great idea. I want to do this. What if they're married? Is there a postnuptial option? What would you recommend?
Yeah. So, we don't do postnups yet, but postnups are a great option for couples.
You can do something after you're married.
Yes. So most states do allow for postnups. Now, not all. I like to say the postnup, like today, is the prenup of 15 years ago, right? It's still a little bit taboo. They're less recognized because the couple is getting married. They're less recognized because the couple is contracting after they're married, right?
Right. Okay.
So the court looks at that. There is some imbalance potentially in bargaining power. And so I think something to keep in mind, though, is if you're already married and you and your spouse are not on the same page with respect to finances, a postnup can be incredible because, and I've seen postnups save marriages. It allows couples to get really honest and really transparent about their finances and their goals. And once they're able to do that, many of them are allowed to get their marriage back on track.
Okay. So I hear this argument when everyone's getting married. Well, if they really love me, they won't have me sign a prenup because it's not about money. It's not, and I'm sure you've heard many iterations of this. If you really love me, we're not going to get divorced. Why are you thinking about that? What do you say to the people who are naysayers to a prenup? Because love conquers all.
Well,
it's that's a big argument people have.
I know. And I would say, well, if love conquers all and money is not an issue, then why wouldn't you get a prenup?
Boom. That is called a flip. That is flip now back onto you. And it's true. Because if it really doesn't matter, then you'll sign it. It doesn't matter. And this is protective for both parties.
Of you.
For both parties.
Exactly. And I really want to encourage couples to remember that a prenup is protective for both parties. Women specifically tend to get a little bit nervous around the concept of a prenup because historically, and understandably, because historically prenups have been looked at is this protective mechanism for men to protect their money from their future wife. That should not be the case.
Right.
And in fact, no, keep going. I could go on forever.
No,
I know we need to break it up.
So to that point, socioeconomically and historically, the men have been the money earners.
Yes.
Just the way society has been.
Yeah.
It is changing very slowly. And so now women are sometimes the breadwinners, sometimes on par with their spouse, or sometimes just fully in charge of everything.
Yeah.
So I do think it's an opportune time, obviously, for you to be doing this. And I was just so intrigued with this concept and your platform because it does very much tie into everything on brand for me, which is women empowerment. Yeah. Get the education you need. Have the tools available for you. You cannot keep living with blinders on in a cave because that's how it's been done.
Yeah.
No. Look, we have educated women, mothers, divorced.
Yep.
Here we are. Hi, we have created tools for you.
Yes.
Use it. This is to protect you, which is a long-term game to protect your family ultimately.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think that, we have to pay attention to the numbers, right? Women have on average $5,000 for every $12,000 a man has. Right. The wealth gap is real.
Yes.
In addition, women tend to out-earn their partners before marriage, before they have children. Once they have children, that's when the wealth gap really creeps in because women historically are the ones who are the caretakers. Right. They take care of the kids more. They do more of the household labor. If a family member gets sick, they're the ones to take care of that family member. And so because of these things, we need to look at a prenup as actually very protective. HelloPrenup does something, and any prenup can do this, where there's something called an equalization clause. There's something we call an equalization clause. Okay. And this is a clause that allows you to say, well, if one party is working less than X amount of hours per week, then we will equalize the wealth based off of what the disparity is. Okay. And this is really important for women who end up taking some time out of the workforce. I saw this a lot in divorce law, is you would have a woman with like a PhD, right? She had an incredible career before she had kids. And once she had kids, she wanted to take a couple of years off to care for those children. Completely reasonable. Let's say she's out of the workforce for 5 years, 7 years. Then she gets divorced. And the amount of child support and alimony that are being allocated to her under the law without a prenup is just not sufficient. And so what is the answer? She ends up in this position where it's being suggested she go work at TJ Maxx or a grocery store. And it's like, we need to be able to contract to terms that make a little bit more sense realistically based off of the fact that her husband's earning trajectory has been straight upward due to her sacrifices in her career. And I think a prenup is the only way to solve for that.
I love that. Okay, so for people right now who are going to be looking it up online,
yes,
walk them through the process. Just a snapshot of what someone should expect to encounter and then how a lawyer gets involved.
Absolutely.
Please.
Yes, absolutely. So you go to HelloPrenup.com, you sign up, you create an account, and then you invite your fiance. At that point, you then individually answer questionnaires.
Can they see the answers?
Not yet.
Oh.
No, not while they're going through the process. And that's intentional because we want each individual to be really, we want each individual to have the opportunity to choose answers that accurately reflect their desires for the prenup, their individual desires for the prenup, right?
Makes sense.
And then once they've each answered the questionnaire and filled out the financial schedule, everything is very detailed and in compliant with state laws. They then walk through a negotiation phase. And in that negotiation phase, they can then resolve any discrepancies in their answers. So if one person wants to waive alimony and the other person doesn't, then they need to work through that.
And this is all before a lawyer?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
If you have questions, legal questions, as you're answering that questionnaire, as most people do, right? How do I know if I should waive alimony or not? Well, great. You can go to your top right. You can click Ask an Attorney, and then you can connect with an attorney in your state. And this is a licensed attorney in your state.
So a legitimate licensed real person, not a bot.
No, my God, no.
Well, it's a legitimate question because sometimes it says, need help, click here. And it says, hi, how can I help you? And I'm like,
no.
Is this a person?
No. We have
just so you know, it's
real
a real
attorneys.
Lawyer.
Yeah, real licensed attorneys. And they get in touch with this attorney, by the way, via a phone call. So they book a phone call with them. And then after you get through the negotiation phase, you can then actually either review your draft or hire an attorney to represent you. And this attorney can go through your draft and will advise you as to the terms in your prenup, can actually make edits in the platform. They can communicate with opposing counsel, so your fiance's attorney through the platform. And then you can actually e-sign and e-notarize your prenup all through HelloPrenup.
So real quick, the person who signs up and requests the attorney, that is effectively their attorney. Their fiance who they invite has to get their own separate attorney?
Yes, exactly. And now you can, if you use one attorney for the Q&A session and they're just not a great fit, you can change. We have multiple attorneys per state. So you're not assigned to one. You can switch if you want to.
And then now asking from an attorney's point of view, how can an attorney who's in family law in any state get involved with this to get on your roster?
Absolutely. Well, you can reach out to us. You can visit HelloPrenup. We have a page for attorneys where they can actually apply. Or you can reach out to us at hello@helloprenup.com and we'll set you up with our head of legal to have a conversation about what it entails. But we love working with attorneys. And one of the things I think is so exciting for me as an attorney and as someone who comes from a family of lawyers, everyone in my family is a lawyer. I always laugh about that. Is I think that HelloPrenup brings attorneys just incredible business, incredible clients who are excited to work with them. And it's a very different process than I think attorneys have been used to historically. And so, one of the pieces of pushback I got when I first started this platform was, and especially after Shark Tank was, well, this is going to take so much business from attorneys. And I always said, no, it isn't. It's going to create more opportunity for attorneys. And I think with our attorney partnerships, we've done just that.
Absolutely, because it's a way that attorneys can harness AI effectively to work for them to help them make more money and to actually help couples
Yeah.
have security.
Yes.
Ah,
And with no overhead, you know?
you see why I invited her? Because she just came up with this idea.
I cannot take all the credit. I
Well,
have an amazing team. I have an
True, but
incredible
you had the
team.
sticky notes. You had the sticky
I
note
have the
idea.
sticky notes, but they really are the brains behind the rest of it.
Absolutely. And it does take a team. So
It does.
And just taking it to a larger conversation of being a person in business
Yeah.
with a family.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're man or woman.
Yeah.
How do you do it all? And I hate that phrase because people ask me, how
Yeah.
do you do it all?
Well, I refuse to choose, I think is the real answer. One thing that is really typical of these conversations for women is like, you have to choose. You can have it all, but they say you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time.
Right.
And I fundamentally disagree with that.
I absolutely agree with you.
I am a mom to a
100%.
4-year-old, and I will never miss school drop-off, pick up, any school activities, any school plays. I'm there for all of it, right? But at the same time, I want this really exciting, fulfilling career. And not only do I want that for myself, but I also want that for the other women I work with. Many of us are moms. And I think it's incredibly important that none of us are pushed out of the workplace because we have to choose. Because these women are incredible talents.
Yes.
They are they're innovators, each one of them. And I don't think we should have to choose between the career. You don't have to be the career woman or the mom. I think you can be both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Shining example of being both.
As are you.
Thank you. And yes, and it's true. And I think also embracing it and saying, absolutely, I am. This is how it gets done. I like to say, you can have it all. You just can't do it all. I delegate. I rely on my village, on my team.
Yes.
I absolutely have it all. I'm not, you and I sitting here does not make us not moms.
Yes.
You and I sitting here does not make us not
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
We have it all. We're doing it
Yes.
all. You are here from Boston. She flew in early, a day early, just to come do this podcast. And you just make it happen, right?
Yeah.
And then you're going to go right back.
Try to.
Well, we do it. You do it. And whatever iteration it ends up being is what it is.
Yeah.
And you move with it.
And it's not always perfect. I think women tend to
no.
strive for perfection. We're taught at a really young age, if it's not perfect, just don't do it. And so a lot of women they lean out, right? And I hate the term lean in, by the way. I don't mean to reference that. But I think it doesn't always have to be perfect. You just have to go for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's all that matters is that you execute it.
Yes.
Get it done.
Yes.
Just go.
Yes.
It's fine.
Exactly.
Okay. And then to conclude, what would you recommend to someone in maybe their industry, whatever they're doing, who wants to start something like this? It's just never been heard of, never been done. The naysayers, competition, whatever that might be. How do you talk to yourself in those scary, insecure, fearful moments? You're on Shark Tank. I would have been shitting on myself. It's true. I get nervous. I would have been a fucking mess. Maybe not you. I don't know.
No, it wasn't easy.
I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even. How do you, and you go as you grow and grow a national business or any kind of business through these very scary moments where the spotlight's on you.
Yeah.
How do you get through that spotlight?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I think you have to have a passion for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Your mission has to be bigger than yourself. That being said, I think teamwork is everything, right? Because I've done this kind of from both sides. I've done this by myself and I've done this with a team. Right. Specifically, when you're talking about Shark Tank, I mean, Sarah Beth and I had each other, right? We had only met a day before Shark Tank, keep in mind, in person. That was the first time we ever met. Yeah. And, but we had each other. Like we were in the trailer together and I knew we were walking out on stage and we practiced together endlessly. We also have a third co-founder. His name is Doug, and he was there with us practicing before Shark Tank. And then I think, my entire team is just incredible. I think teamwork is everything. You have to really have a synergy and really great working relationships, because at the end of the day, without a team, you will never be able to accomplish such scale.
That's right.
And so, when we talk about this business and how it was built, I always like to remind everybody that I did it with my team. It was a team effort. It's not just me. I may be the one here sitting here telling you about it, but it's really my team who are the brilliant minds behind this.
Oh gosh, I love that. And it's true. Again, to scale, you cannot do it all.
Yeah.
And one last thing for business owners, yes, you have to have the hustle and you do it and the grit mentality, but then something happens where to scale, to start actually having, growth, you do need to delegate. You do need to build that team.
Yeah.
We are finite people, or people with finite amount of time in a day.
Yeah.
With lives.
Yeah.
With all of it.
Yeah.
It helps you work smarter, not harder.
And I just want to add something to that too. Like the people who are on my team are people who I really, really trust. For example, our head of legal, I have been working with her for years. I was working with her on projects even before HelloPrenup started. Our chief marketing officer, Lauren, I had met her, after a couple months after I launched HelloPrenup in beta by myself and just as a contractor. My marketing associate, Aleja, was actually my au pair for 2 years. Her boyfriend is our head software engineer, So like I've hired these people, and not everybody I've known forever, but I really was intentional when we were hiring to make sure we were hiring people who really understood the product at a deep level. We're excited by the mission in that as a team, we could trust, And so we all really trust each other. And I think that's some of what the HelloPrenup X factor is that there's a real working synergy between all of us. Yeah.
Well, I applaud you and I thank you just for starting to change the narrative, because really, truly, there's nothing out there like this. And it really empowers people, women, to have the tools available to them. We're no longer living in the dark ages. And, it was your brainchild and your team is helping the whole narration change. And so thank you on behalf of just society in general for creating this. And I'm just super proud. So I thank you so much for coming. I'd love to have you back and revisit once. And you're in every state, right?
We're in 45 states, so almost.
Almost. So she'll come back when we're in all the states.
But we're in California.
Absolutely. Important. So thank you, my friend. I'd love to have you back.
Thank you.
And I wish you just continued success.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.